Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 630 of Toronto Mic'd, a weekly podcast about anything and everything. Proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Garbage Day. Weekly reminders for garbage, recycling, and yard waste pickup. Visit garbageday.com/Toronto Mike to sign up now. StickerU.com. Create custom stickers, labels, tattoos, and decals for your home and your business. And the Keitner Group. They love helping buyers find their dream home. Text Toronto Mike to 59559. Get the Zoom URL for their virtual open house, hosted by yours truly. I'm Mike from TorontoMike.com, and joining me is Andrew Krystal.
What's going on, brother?
Hey, you sound good.
Thank you very much.
Well, is that a good
All right,
mic?
let's rock this. When do you want to start recording?
I'm already recording, but what kind of microphone are you using?
I don't know. It looks very phallic. I have no idea.
All right,
So-
let's do this, brother.
Yeah, and speaking of phallic, I wanted to talk about Mike Stafford if I could. But I want to preface that by saying, a lot of people are wondering, how do you survive in this COVID environment? How can you possibly continue on? Well, you see, the key is to diversify. With revenue falling out of broadcasting, you've got to do something. You've got to be inventive. You've got to be creative. So I have gotten into, as you know, I have my own organization. It's called Crystal Nation Inc., KNI, and I'm developing delivery apps.
Okay.
And it's the only way to go. But my difference is with my delivery apps, I'm targeting towards specific communities. It's not all things to all people. No. That's old school. You've got to target towards communities who are predisposed to order with you. It's not about the food. It's about the culture. So I'm developing an app right now, just let you know,
Okay.
targeted towards gay women.
Okay.
It's called Skip the Penis. Now,
I'm with you.
interesting, our first two offerings are the Manwich, very big. I'm surprised. Have you had a Manwich?
Chipwich. I used to eat chipwiches in the 80s.
I thought you mentioned one time when you were 13 and you were experimenting, but never mind. But the Manwich and the Butch Beef Stew are huge offerings. So look for it. Skip the Penis.
Okay, skip the penis. Now, Andrew, how are you doing during this global
I'm very well.
pandemic?
And you know something? I'm not the only broadcaster involved in the delivery app development game. John Oakley is also involved, although he's doing the theatrical side. You know that John is heavily influenced by the theater. You know that, right?
Of course.
He's involved in a Mervish webcast. They're going all digital.
Yes.
And he's starring in a production called The Mailman. You know about this?
No, tell me.
It's a reimagining of James M. Cain's 1934 novel, The Postman Always Rings Twice. Only in this one, John plays a high school guidance counselor who becomes a grocery delivery boy, but decides to develop a grocery delivery app. But the weird thing about it is that it allows people to pay for the same things over and over again, and all John has to do is mail it in.
I like how you just out of the gate. I love it, Andrew. It's fantastic.
That's all he has to do is mail it in. So,
But you're not an Oakley fan?
I think John is a great guy. I have a lot of admiration for John. And, Mike Stafford is not to be outdone. He heard about what Oakley's doing. He's involved in Mervish webcast now.
Okay.
So he's doing Scrooge the Final Days. Did you hear about this?
No, this is an exclusive. Let me hear more.
It's a one-woman play written and produced by Mike Stafford. It takes place at Christmas time, of course, at a call center in the Philippines. Mike plays a transgendered operator, and it's funny, It's sexy. It's compassionate. Only something Mike Stafford can do.
Now, Stafford was there when Mojo Radio launched. He was there, and you were there, right? This is when I first discovered Andrew Krystal, was Mojo Radio.
What I like about Stafford had one of the best shows there. He did a show about nothing, very Seinfeldian.
Right.
But it was about something. It was about Stafford making great content out of non-subjects. It was his attempt to counter-program current events. And Stafford's got a great voice, smart guy, good broadcaster. I like Mike Stafford a lot.
He was on Jeopardy, you know.
He was on Jeopardy. The closest I got to Mike Stafford, however, was a conversation we had about Tracy Lords in 2003.
All right, so let's do this.
Not kidding. He'll remember that.
Well, I hope he listens. He's been on the show a couple of times. I consider him an FOTM, regardless of what he says about me on the air. But
I'm sure he's been on your show many times. He has less and less to do. Go ahead.
How do you get the gig? Take us back.
Sorry about that.
That's that. You got to take your meds. Is that what that is?
No. My meds. Every time the bell rings, my mouth waters. No, it's just a client. You see, I
know you got lots of clients, but I want to
right now. Radio works for me. I no longer work for radio.
So you're actually invoicing the big radio companies.
No, radio works. Yes. And radio works for me. I don't work for radio. And SiriusXM will have me on every day at 4, starting in the next 2 weeks. So I've got a new home studio. I've revved it up, jazzed it up.
Okay.
And I'll be performing naked every day at 4.
Be specific.
Only on SiriusXM.
Yeah. Which station?
Channel 167, Canada Talks.
Okay. Congrats. That's great news. People get to hear you every day.
As I said, though, the key with broadcasting these days is to have radio work for you as opposed to you work for radio. These things are so specialized that if something happens with your job, and there will be layoffs,
sure,
or big salary cuts, and if you have all your eggs in one basket, using that old analogy, you're screwed. And so it's important when you live in Toronto to take advantage of the city. This is my town. I was born here, and I'm still living in the same penthouse that I had when I was doing the morning show on the Fan. And I think that says a lot, because you need all the skills that got me into radio when I started, because you got to be middle-aged to do radio properly. So I was early middle-aged when I got into radio 20 years ago. Like I had just turned something like, I was just in my 30s, early middle-age, 35 or something. And all of those skills I use in the graduation from broadcasting, which can never pay me what I need. There's no morning show that could pay me what I do now. So
what did they pay you at the Fan?
The other thing is nobody can friggin' fire me. So I do my radio. I enjoy myself. I'm beholden to nobody. And, I'm nobody's bitch.
Okay. So Andrew, I don't know if you've heard an episode.
Except John Oakley's.
Except John Oakley's.
I am Oakley's bitch.
Oakley took over for Humble and Fred. I know that Humble and Fred had that morning show.
Nobody can take over for Humble and Fred. Humble Howard is both Humble and Fred. Fred is a fantastic broadcaster, but Humble Howard is a extremely good and rich talent. He is a very bright guy. And in the 90s, he was unstoppable as everything is time and place. But the fact that he's so talented, he can reinvent himself. His sense of performance. He was the first person to say to me, Andy, he used to call me Andy, we're ourselves. We're the same people on the air as off the air. So don't be phony. And there's a lot of broadcasters I can tell you about, Mike, and I don't know if you know them. Most of them, I would say 70% got their personalities in a car crash. In other words, you talk to them off the air, they got nothing to say and they're not interested in speaking with you. The only time they turn on their personality is when they got a mic in front of them. Otherwise, they're boring as hell. And I'm not kidding.
Well, do you want to name some names?
Don Cherry's the same guy. Ron McLean is the same guy. There's some people that are the same people. And God bless them for that. But some guys, really, there's nothing going on when they turn off that mic. Huh. And I don't know how that can be. But I was always disappointed by that. So, and I'm not going to say a name. I'm not going to say names, but some people, I just wonder, like, anyway. And the other thing is some of these guys that will share stuff, but they really have no empathy for other people. I've seen that before too.
So they're phony.
Look, guys like Agar, soldier of war, traditional talk show host. Adler, traditional host, competent. Both guys competent, long tenured, competent traditional talkers. I have a lot of time for those guys.
Adler got you.
Bill Carroll.
Bill Carroll.
Survivor. Bill Carroll's my favorite times with Bill was hearing him work it at KFI. When I heard him on the air talking to Angelinos who didn't know him and didn't care, I could hear him working. I could hear his voice go up. I could hear him pumping it out. He was phenomenal. I loved those broadcasts. They were great. Oakley in the 90s on CFRB. Yeah. Unbelievable stuff. Unbelievable stuff with a joy, etc. It was fantastic. Derringer still pumps it up. That's a solid cat. RJ Derringer keeps it rocking. Aaron Davis, one of the greatest. Roger Ashby for that format. Aaron could do any format.
Yeah, but, you're naming people though who haven't been on the air in a while, because I know.
Well, I'm just talking about the greats.
Sure,
I mean, Oakley hasn't been on the air for years either. I still talk about him.
Are you isolating with Oakley? Is he there with you?
I mean, it's weekend at Bernie's broadcasting. I don't count.
Okay, let me. If it's okay,
around. John is a good guy. I'm just joking around.
No, it's all fun. Joking. I'm sure. So Adler,
you know what I like best about Mike Stafford?
Well, what?
His charity. You'll never find a kinder man. Go ahead.
I can't tell when you're being sincere. That's the problem.
I'm just going to take a sarcasm shower. Would you give me 5 minutes?
Adler got you. I don't know if he got you, but something you said to Charles Adler on CTV Newsnet got you banned.
I loved it. Yeah, I was fired from it. It was great.
And, do you remember what you said?
Of course I do. I loved it.
Okay,
Adler is like, if you're going to ask a partisan about something, you just get the traditional response.
Right.
And my particular issue I took with Charlie that day, and Charles, can I call you Charlie? Okay, thanks, Charles. I have a lot of imaginary friends. He's just one of my schizophrenic.
Hey, can I call you Andy?
You can call me anything.
Oh. Okay,
but you can't go from, anyway, we talked about that. But
yes, but I heard Howard called you Andy. I wondered if I could call you Andy.
Oh, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
But what he said was, he was talking about Harper or something, and the pretense was that he was measured. He was some kind of logic-driven, impartial, stoic, not choosing sides umpire, weighing in with, as I mentioned, a measured, sort of independent, fair broker assessment of things, which is total BS. He was just going to do his conservative line, which is fine. But don't try and come off as somebody who's making a considered judgment when it's the same knee-jerk bullshit.
Right.
So I was saying, Charles, what are you talking about? You'd vote for Hitler if he was a conservative. That was hyperbolic.
Sure.
And it made the cameraman jump out of his, he spilled his coffee. Remember, this is like 7 or 7:30 or something like that. So to make a cameraman move, that's good. You're moving the needle. When the cameraman spills his coffee because he's laughing, that's a good thing. Now, clearly I was being hyperbolic. He goes, but then he had all this fake moral outrage, right? Oh, I do not find that entertaining or amusing, like he outraged him. I bet I've been to shul more times than him, and I'm not even Jewish. Anyway, I move on.
Okay, I got questions about Mojo though. Like, maybe give us a little bit. Firstly, is Krystal your real name? Because that's a pretty.
That's my name. Yes, sir.
That's a pretty cool name.
Andrew Glenn Krystal.
Okay, so Andy, tell us about how you end up at Mojo Radio, and then let us know a little bit about why they canned you, because that was kind of a cool station.
They wanted me to do a split, and I asked for more money, and they wanted to put. My friend Ken Dryden had wanted a different brand for Mojo. When I went on, they said, Andrew, you're too boring. You've got to, we're going to kick you off. You're too bookish. So I became the dirtiest talk show host in the country. I would have Henry Kissinger on, and then I would have Heidi Fleiss on, right?
Right.
And Kissinger would say, how can they put Heidi Fleiss? I said, well, You said that power was the biggest aphrodisiac, Henry. So surely you can follow Heidi. And that was one of Kissinger, former Secretary of State, statements. So I would marry the absurd with the, I had Noam Chomsky on 3 or 4 times, the international relations specialist, former linguist, fabulous American critic, American foreign policy critic. I had, a lot of luminaries on, and I loved it. And so, but what we also tried to mix, because a talk show host should be doing something like Bill Maher does. You inform, you educate, some polemics obviously in there, but you have conflict and you have humor and you also have empathy. You make people laugh. Derringer once said to me, he said, "You're the only talker, Andrew, that makes me laugh." And that's true, because most of them are humorless Fs. They're humorless. They're not funny. They're not entertaining. They're not, it's the same boring every day. And we approach journalism. We are not journalists. We are entertainers. We approach journalism. So the stuff they're doing in sports journalism now, which used to have similar attitudes about itself, like the guys on Sportsnet, who are they? Tim and Sid.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a sense of humor. And I like that about them. It's good. I mean, I don't watch them a lot because there's nothing to watch with sports now. But they deliver, and Rogers is back to mine. Good for Rogers, because you got to have a sense of humor. You have to have it all. You have to cry on the air. You have to. When my mother was dying, I remember being on antidepressants and discussing it on the air. I mean, I don't know, it was great. But you have to have a range: humor, conflict, empathy, information. And most talkers don't give you all of those. But Mojo was a really good time in radio, but I'm not this Sony board, looking back, remember in my day is here. My day is now. I had Roger Stone on yesterday. I had Ronan Bergman from Israel, one of the best investigative journalists in the world, on the day before that. I mean, I love what I'm doing. I love the control that I have. I love the fact that I'm unfireable, and I love the fact that I'm outbilling every single person in broadcasting. So
we're gonna get to this current day. I'm with you.
Living well is your best revenge in life.
And I'm happy for you, but I got to ask a few of the pertinent questions people want to hear from you. Like, we want to hear about Mojo. It sounds like you wanted more money and they didn't want to give it to you, so you.
Yeah, well, they had Bromell. Okay, so Ken Dryden, getting back to that, sorry for being so elliptical.
That's okay.
Ken Dryden wanted a brand that was more conventional. At that time, the folks there, and they made a bonehead decision to hitch their horse to Leaf broadcast. Now, the Toronto Maple Leafs, as a format covering the Leaf games, was bounced around. Nobody cared about Leafs rights. The Leafs rights was a dog. Leafs rights were a dead dog. It was a bad stock. It had bounced around Q. It had bounced around AM 640. Nobody really wanted Leafs rights. Mojo got it, and we made it fun. We made it sexy. We had humor. We got that all going, but it was humor married to, what guys were talking about or thinking about.
Right.
So we married. I remember one thing where I was talking about, I really like this new relationship I'm in because I can commit to oral genital relations with my girlfriend and still watch the Leaf games above her pubis.
Right.
So but whatever kind of absurdity or humor, and that was an effective brand. But when Mojo, a couple of things happened. They lost Mojo. They went to a conventional talk brand. So they lost their share. They lost their market. They became like everybody else. So they gave up on their brand, genuflecting to MLSE. And MLSE, the Leafs took a big dump. They stunk the house out for ages.
Right.
And I think the numbers showed that even if the Leafs went to the Stanley Cup final, that they would have only generated about $300,000 in extra revenue. That's if the Leafs win the Stanley Cup.
Wow. And
the Leafs were a loss leader. They were never anything to write home about. They were a big cost.
Wow.
They only collaterally would generate revenue. And I'm saying you don't need to own the Leafs rights to talk about the Leafs. You can still talk about the Leafs whether or not you're playing the games.
Of course.
And of course, now Leafs on radio, nobody cares about because they broadcast every friggin' game, right? So, the Leafs rights don't matter anymore in terms of broadcasting.
Now,
but that was the deal. So they genuflected to Dryden. They decided to make and Dryden was a friend of mine. It was Ken and I that popularized Maple Leaf Nation. I said Mojo Maple Leaf Nation Awaken. Nobody had popularized the term Leafs Nation until I did it on Mojo Radio in 02, 03, 04.
And then you took it for Krystal Nation.
Well, exactly, because and Ford and all the rest of it. But Rob used to listen to me.
Right.
And I covered the Fords at City Hall when I was doing CityNews there. That was a fun time.
Well, we'll get to that. Speaking of Oakley, I mean, that was the big Rob Ford counselor thing.
And Victor Machado, Oakley's producer, and I don't think in 10 years he even bought Victor a coffee. I took Victor out for lunch every day because I know they paid him nothing and I was getting decent money, so I took him out for lunch every day. I don't think Oakley ever bought him a coffee, but some people are like that.
Okay, Andrew.
Because I want my guys around me that work with me to want me to win.
Right.
I want them to be motivated. I want them to know I care about them.
Now, to borrow a line from to borrow a line from fellow Mojo Radio alumnus, the late great Scruff Connors, the listenership might need to be reminded that Mojo Radio was like Maxim magazine on the radio. It was talk radio for guys. Right. and it sounds like Ken Dryden didn't think that was politically correct enough.
No, Ken's a conservative WASP, right? He's one of my people. I'm a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, but he's a super WASP, right?
Sure.
So, he's more the John Tory school of being a WASP, and which is fine, decent, upright, and all the rest of it, all the things that I'm not. And I say tongue in cheek to some extent, but I never courted that. That's my gene pool actually, which is white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, devout, pious. That's my grandmother only knew hymns. That was the only music that she knew.
Gotcha.
God bless him. God bless him. But I'm more of a secular modernist.
Is it true?
I was not into the miracles. I don't think those tricks happen. Go ahead, sir.
Is it true that the same day you were fired from 640, you did a shift on 1010?
Yeah, because they didn't do a proper contract out on my contract, so it could go on the air on CFRB.
That's kind of amazing.
I don't think anyone's done it. Not that it matters.
No, but that you're fired in the afternoon or morning or whatever, and that night you're doing a fill-in shift.
Look,
on
let me just say this: they didn't renew my contract. They didn't throw me out. It didn't have any extra paydays. My contract was up, and they didn't renew it.
Okay,
which is fine. And by the way, when Andrew Krystal gets fired, it's a big news story. When Strombolopoulos gets his ass canned, nothing. There's no Strombolos fired. He was fired. Strombo was fired. He was freaking fired. When I heard Glenn Healy, very interesting story. I'm kicking back watching TV, and I wonder if any of the listeners remember this. Healy is on Hockey Night in Canada. I wonder if Merrick remembers this. I love Jeff Merrick. I have no idea his fixation with wrestling, but whatever. So I still think it's homoerotic, but that's just me. That's my interest.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
I'm just kidding. I'm joking. God bless Merrick. So I'm watching the Hockey Night in Canada broadcast. And Healy, I want to call him Jeff Healy, Glenn Healy.
I love
He's
Jeff
alive
Healy.
again.
I love Jeff Healy. That guy was great.
Next up, the Braille Review. Anyway, so we've got Glenn Healy talking to Strombo, and Strombo's got the pointed shoes on. He looks like he's just ready to go to the junior high prom every night. And at one point, Glenn Healy looks at Strombo and calls him Tinkerbell on the air on Hockey Night in Canada.
Eek. Right?
So in front of that macho male audience, he refers to George Strombolopoulos. And Georgie knows this if he heard it. If he hears this, he'll know.
Mm-hmm.
Glenn Healy called him Tinkerbell. And I could see the hurt and shock on his face. TV really does capture things live. You can't hide some stuff on TV.
Right.
And I said to my wife, I said to her, both those guys are gone. They're both done, and they both were.
That's homophobic, in my opinion.
It's outrageous. Well, of course,
because you're using it as a negative, a slur.
He's calling him an FAG on the. That's what he's saying.
Right.
It's absolutely.
I didn't know this story.
That's what he's calling him, and it was. Strombo did not do anything to deserve that level of opprobrium. And first of all, had he irked Healy, which I couldn't discover at all, I couldn't divine that. It certainly doesn't deserve that kind of retort. That's outrageous.
Do you think they gave Strombo enough time in that role?
No, it wasn't happening
because it wasn't the right fit.
He wasn't fitting in with them. But look,
yeah,
I think he's a very engaging man, and the reason is that he's really comfortable on camera. That's a great strength he is, and I think that they should have. I would have liked, in retrospect, I would have liked to see them give him more time. Correct. I think it's good to go a bit off format with some things and go a bit different, but the audience wasn't.
Well, they wanted James Duthie. This is the story. Is they tried to get James out of TSN, and James didn't want to go. He wanted to stay where he was, where he is today. And because they didn't get James Duthie, they tried the Strombo route.
But I mean, the thing about my stuff is I always covered Leafs. In my current events broadcasting, I always covered the Leafs, and some of the guys, didn't like they. What had they done in terms of the format? I hadn't been strictly sports format. Look, the other thing too is, for me, I mean, I have 3,690 something books in my home. Okay.
Wow. I
have a big place, 2-level penthouse. It's huge. And I need it to be large because I have a lot of books. I think maybe 6 of them are about sports, maybe 3 of them. One is McCown's old book, and some stuff that I had when I was at the Fan. I don't read sports books.
Okay, I got to get you the Fan.
I read Cox. I read hockey stories. I still Google the Leafs. Right. Leafs news. I still Google that. But I'm reading about economics, geopolitics, war, military history. That's the.
Do you think you were too smart for the Fan 590? Hello, FOTMs. I hope you're enjoying my conversation with Andrew Krystal. I need to thank some tremendous organizations and people that have helped fuel the Real Talk. They're proud sponsors of this program, and I really hope you support them and let them know they're doing a great thing by partnering with Toronto Mic'd. In no particular order, thank you, Garbage Day. I use Garbage Day, especially with this COVID-19 pandemic. They're moving things around. When is the yard pickup? When is the yard waste pickup, I should say? When is the garbage pickup? When is the recycling? The easiest way to keep track of all this and take the guesswork out of it is to sign up at garbageday.com/TorontoMike. I'd appreciate it. garbageday.com/TorontoMike. Easy to sign up. It'll take you like 10 seconds. And you'll thank me later. I saw a tweet from Great Lakes Brewery that the Electric Circus beer is going to be available this week. And you can get free delivery if you live in within certain boundaries of Toronto. You can get free delivery. But you can do curbside pickup. This is very cool. In fact, you can drive to Great Lakes Brewery. They're at 30 Queen Elizabeth Boulevard. And from the parking lot, using your phone, you can place your order. Let's say you want 2 cases of Electric Circus because it reminds you of Toronto Mike. And right away almost, they'll come out safely and put it in the trunk of your car. And it's like no contact curbside pickup. It's slick. They're also at LCBOs and some grocery stores. So enjoy Great Lakes beer. Palma Pasta, they're still open. They're doing everything very safely. It's a great way to get your groceries because you get the fresh, authentic taste of Italy. Great people too. Happy 96th birthday to, I hope Mike don't screw up his name, Marcelio Petrucci. from the Petrucci family. That's Anthony's dad. Go to palmapasta.com and order your groceries there, and visit them in Mississauga and Oakville. If you have any questions about Toronto real estate, they're still selling houses at the Keitner Group. They're still helping buyers find their dream home. Text Toronto Mike to 59559. Do it. Austin will take care of you. They are tremendous people. And I can't wait to give guests like Andrew Krystal their Toronto Mike sticker from stickeru.com. Upload an image to stickeru.com. You can get decals, tattoos, temporary tattoos, of course, stickers and buttons, and there's a bunch of stuff you can get. They're excellent people as well. Great partners of Toronto Mike, and I thank them for their support. Stickeru.com. And now, back to Crystal Nation on Toronto Mic'd.
No, it wasn't. It's not about being too intelligent. My interests were a bit too polymathic to be confined just to talk about sports.
Okay, can I ask you, I know that you went off to Halifax and you were a big deal, right? You were a big deal.
I'm not too smart for sports. That's kind of, but my interest range is beyond sports, right? And besides, I find golf boring, okay?
Yeah, I do too.
Basketball was fine when the Raptors were on the roll. I loved that, and they're a competitive team, and I loved watching the Raptors. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I'm not interested in tennis. I think tennis sucks, and I like hockey. I am interested in hockey. I like the Leafs. I like hating Montreal. I like hockey.
Right.
Hockey. That's what I like. So, in terms of my sports interest, that's okay. NFL, maybe a little bit near the end. I hated the last Super Bowl, whatever.
Okay, but Andrew, just to get you to the fan,
the CFL, forget it. Jesus Christ.
Well, then you probably want to work for a Rogers station if that's the case, because
I don't want to work for any station, brother. I'm on SiriusXM. I run my business.
Right. Now, after you leave Toronto for Halifax, you're a big deal in Halifax. So can you just tell us how you end up with the Fan 590 morning show gig?
I was interviewing Bob, getting him on to talk about the NHL playoffs. It was good radio. And I like talking hockey. They heard me. They started monitoring my casts, and they liked what they heard. And they said, look, 75% of what we talk about is Leafs.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the Jays suck. I mean, until they get better, that's okay. I wouldn't mind a little Jays. I like going on with Wilner. I like going on with those boys. But, honestly, my intention without hockey, it's... So they liked what I talked about. They liked how I did it. They liked the fact that I was able to deliver I remember when Osama bin Laden was shot, and I heard the guys on the morning show struggle with the news topic because they have no background in it.
Gord Stellick and Don Landry.
No, Stellick. I like Gord Stellick, by the way, very much, both as a person and as a broadcaster. I think he's a fine human being. Who was the fellow? Brady or? Oh,
Greg Brady and Jim
nice
Lang.
Guy. He's a nice guy. They're all. Listen, I have a lot of respect for people who are in this.
Okay, that's after you though, right?
I made jokes. I like Stafford a lot. I have a lot of respect for him. Stafford probably hates my guts. I don't give a shit. Oakley always hated my guts. I'm sure. I think he saw me as a threat. I've got no problem with either of those guys. As a matter of fact, I really like Stafford. But whatever. Anybody who's in this business, God bless them.
Okay,
it does get a bit catty and a bit high schoolish at certain levels. But I don't compete with anybody. I do my own thing.
Okay, but to take us back to September 2010 here. Okay,
so go see The Mailman, the Mervish production. Oakley's fantastic in that. Always mails it in. Go ahead.
Okay, now prior to the summer of 2010, the morning show on the Fan 590 is Gord Stellick and Don Landry. Okay.
Yeah.
Fact, if you will. Then they bring in what they call a summer replacement, sort of to keep just until because they were going to launch a new show in the fall of 2010. The guy who comes in, by the way, has been on Toronto Mic'd. He's a good guy, Jeff Lumby. He's just there for the summer.
Lumby's a wonderful man. I met him with with Howard Glassman.
Oh, they're buddies. Yeah.
By the way, let's hear, honest to God.
Yeah.
As I said, some of the brightest radio I ever heard was Oakley on RB in the 90s. Stafford has a voice that's golden.
Mm-hmm.
Lumbee, multi-talented, great attitude, great person. I actually like everybody in the business. Just don't need them as a friend. But I like everybody in the business.
Well, you can't like them all, right? No.
You know what? I actually do. Scruff Connors is when I had my wife organized a big going away party, and a lot of the city showed up for it when I was in Halifax, and they threw money at me, right? And Toronto's my hometown, so I came back, and Scruff happened to be in Halifax and happened to be outside in the courtyard at that specific time in Halifax that day.
Wow.
Unbelievable serendipity.
Yeah.
But
we
remember when Mojo Radio, right? I would have Tracy Lords on, and then I would have Christopher Hitchens on.
Right.
Like that was a special time in radio, and I loved working with Scruff.
So who specifically was listening to you on 95.7 in Halifax and thought that's our new morning show? Is that Don Collins?
I was probably Bob. Probably Bob told Don.
Bob McCowan.
And Don listened, and he liked it.
Because Bob had a lot of power. He wielded a lot of power in that station. He could make or break you, so to speak.
Well, I don't know. Bob's is a classic, talk curmudgeon. Again, a guy with a broad range of interests, and a very devoted fan base. Classic guy. It's a shame that whatever happened there. But as I said, look, they can trade Gretzky, they can fire anybody. It's an effed up business. But the worst thing you want to do is these people who are whining little weasels. They whine, oh, someone wasn't nice to me, or this didn't happen. It's a tough game. You either have a pair or you don't. Who cares? When you're canned, it's very personal, and you take it personal because you develop a personal brand, etc. But tough S. So that's what it takes. It's like pet ownership. They die. And the way it works in this business is you either fire them or they fire you. You either know when to leave, make the right moves, or forget it.
But Andrew,
you with your podcast, Michael Boone, you have been like this herpetic rash that won't go away, that returns every autumn. You stay there, the blistering sore that you are in the firmament, and you are loved. There's no salve or penicillin topical ointment that will get rid of you. And you've done a great job. And it's your passion and your commitment that has made it so that now the entire industry moves to this kind of driven broadcaster, which you are. Whether you're formally hired or not, doesn't matter. You've stayed with it. You've not given a damn. You do what you love. And I think that that's amazing. I think that you're very unique in Canada for what you do.
Oh, thank you. I didn't see that coming. That's great. If you need more time to elaborate, just let me know. We'll make time for that.
Well, look, I mean, it's force of will. And I think that anybody, and that's why, it's all about force of will. I remember talking to William Shatner, and not too long ago, I said, how you doing? He goes, I'm still running as fast as I can. And I think that's great. I think, and wherever you are, whatever stage you are, it's always adapt or die. But don't bemoan what's gone on. Oh, the horse was better. Why use these mechanical cars? Just enjoy it. Go with the ride. Move it. If you've got something to say, and you can deliver it, and you can engage people, and you don't bore people, because that's number one thing. Don't bore people. And I'm probably doing that right now. But the bottom line is, that is the content. Either you have content or not. What I do resent, though, are some of the broadcasters that are getting checks from somebody because they went to somebody's wedding party, or they're somebody's best man, or they filleted somebody in the hallway, but they don't have any depth. They have nothing to say. They're not well read. They're not, funny. There's nothing going on. And yet they don't even have great voices. And I love this penchant now for putting people on who sound like shit. What's that all about?
I started that trend.
Get somebody. See, good for you. Good for you. You're good. But the format, it's radio. You don't have a pinup that looks like Roseanne Barr, right? Like, why does it's got to be wedded to its medium. You need a voice that works and a brain behind the voice, or a sense of humor, something.
Okay, so why did they?
These people that have no information, that don't sound good, and have nothing to say, and that's why maybe the money is going out of broadcasting, because they're not actually developing people. I don't know what they're doing.
Well, okay, well let's find out. In your opinion, why did they give you such a short leash? Like we just talked about, did Strombo have enough time? They gave him a couple of years or something. You had months, right? You started in September 2010, but the
CEO came in. New CEO Keith Pelly came in and wanted his own people in there. I told you some things off, Mike, that I'm not going to go on this recording, which will exist for all time, and do that because I don't want to slag people. But Keith Pelly came on. Now he himself left, quote unquote. Let's just use that. Get those exclamation points out there, quotation marks.
Right.
He left. Nadir Mohammed left. Right. So everybody gets it. But he came in and fired my bosses and fired me. So and I knew him in the 90s, but I didn't play that card. He forgot that we were old friends at one point. Not good friends. We had people in common. I didn't really know him. But, Keith realized he reached out, to his credit, he reached out many times after the move. And I don't know why he did that, but God bless him. But he was really trying to get a fit for me somewhere afterwards. But it didn't matter. It didn't really matter. But I brought my wife here and this and that, so I was sort of pissed off because they recruited me.
Right.
Recruited me, hired me for mid-mornings, promoted me to mornings, fired me, rehired me for the afternoons, fired me, and rehired me at City, all within 6 months.
It sounds like they didn't quite know what to do with you.
Friggin' record.
Like they knew you were a talented broadcaster, but they weren't sure where you fit because you're not conventional.
No, they want that's bullshit.
Well, that's why you're here, to set the record straight.
Keith wanted his friends in. He had another idea. Him and Burke. Burke is funny. Burke's got a short leash. Burke won't be there very long. But Burke was always running and trying to get people fired at the Sun, and he was doing the same with me. What a thin-skinned, insecure guy Burke is.
I got a cease and desist from him.
Did you?
Yep. From his.
You got a cease and desist from Burke.
Yeah, from Heine, whatever the name of it. Blake and Heine. Is that it? Blake and Heine?
That's how petty he is. Good for you.
And I posted it on TorontoMike.com. I
know he's so insecure, and he's just a little man. Brian Burke he knows he's full of shit. It's just a matter of time with Brian Burke. Right? So did you enjoy those 4 months or whatever? If somebody wants to say, okay, he's not saying nice things about me, hates the Leafs, stunk then. The Kessel trade was terrible. He stunk, right? He didn't get, he gets the trades. We could have had, oh my God, we have Tyler Seguin. Could have had Tyler Seguin.
Right, but I don't think, he gambled that we wouldn't be that bad.
And he says truculence and he hires Kessel.
Right. No, yeah.
Like he's so full of it. And by the way, Brian Burke is the biggest coattailer. The cup he won was because of Murray's coattails. The GM set him up to win when he went to Anaheim. That's not even his cup. Brian Burke is a huge false god, if he ever was anything.
Yeah, but to avoid another lawyer letter.
Again, if somebody can go in, right, and shake the bushes and influence somebody to get hired or fired or whatever, that's just the way it goes. If you're not good enough to stick it out and fight the slings and arrows, it's no one's fault.
For the
CEO makes the decisions,
right?
But I can list a whole bunch of names of guys that were making $1 million a year as senior broadcast executives who were fired, like major talent. Some of them have been at my parties, right? My wife and I host these big parties back when people could have them. So we'll have 60 or 80 people here. They come out on the roof.
Oh, I've heard. We have some mutual friends who have been at these parties and tell me they were fantastic. Howard, Ralph Ben-Mergy. Is that possible that he was one?
Yeah, Ralph. I love Ralph. Ralph's the super gentleman.
So yeah, Howard Glassman, Ralph Ben-Mergy. That's two right there for sure.
Bob, of course.
I think Bob thinks I'm somebody else. I don't think he knows
Bob McCowan?
who I am. Yeah, he thinks I'm Mike in Boston who writes on a different blog. So
Mike in Boston.
yeah,
We could be the other one.
I've never.
Pretend you're Mike in
I'm not Mike
Boston.
Boston. So wait,
It's like make it kind of like a Tinder thing. Hi, Bob.
Mike is a rather common name, but there's a lot of us.
How are you?
Andrew's
What
a
are you
common
wearing?
name, actually. I know a lot of
Bob?
Andrews. So
Bob?
Andrew,
Bob, what are you wearing?
if you
Do you
can
have your camera on?
get Bob to
Bob?
make an appearance on Toronto Mike, that would be kind of
Well,
fun.
do you have your camera on? What are you wearing? It's Mike in Boston. And where were we?
Okay, so you're at the Fan 590. It's only like 4 months or so. Did you enjoy your time there?
It was good. It was good. I of course I liked it. But the problem is when the new CEO came in, when Keith came in,
Mhm.
he wanted to do his own thing. And so that stressed out Collins. It stressed out everybody because he wanted to do his own thing.
But
You Burke
did-
was mad that I was
Yeah.
crapping on the Leafs every day, but the team was garbage.
So Greg Brady and Jim Lang are your replacements after your
Mhm.
removal from the morning show. Did you ever listen
Who
to Brady
cares?
and Lang? Did you ever listen and think, oh, they're not as good as me, or they're better than me? Did you ever listen to them?
Well, no, you don't do that. No broadcaster does that. Have you ever broken up with a girl? Do you go follow her to the drive-in theater?
No.
Do you follow your ex-girlfriend to a restaurant, see who she's talking to?
No.
First of all, I don't need to listen to sports radio, right? I'll read, Cox and these other guys. I love reading them. Sportsnet, whatever, I'll read it. But as far as, unless there's something big going on, as I said, Timothy and Sydney,
Right.
I'll have a couple of them now and again. But, no, I wouldn't listen. I remember when Osama bin Laden was shot, I couldn't stand what I was listening to there because that I would have been perfectly placed to discuss that. I mean, me and Peter Bergen, I've interviewed Bergen 6 times. He interviewed Osama bin Laden.
But do you think
I've
people
lots of
tune in?
ideas
Do people tune in to 590 to hear conversations of that nature? Or are they they're just, I want
I
sports?
want to
It's
hear
like,
people talking about the Leafs or the Raptors if they're on a run, or the Jays if they're on a run.
because it's
or
an
whatever. But
escape,
look,
right? Like sports is its only purpose is really as an escape from reality, right?
I think one of the best brands is the 680 News brand. I think broadcasters that are intelligent, gracious, and filled with decorum, people like Scott Metcalf, who is a glorious individual, a really, really good human being, and an incredible newsman. And Rogers is a wonderful broadcast institution. They're very, very good. And they have very, very good people. Right. So, but look, this is the business. You're in it's a lion's den. It's a crazy business. And you got to accept it, and you go in and you do your best. And if it works, it works. No guts, no glory.
How
The
is
worst thing is whining about whatever happened. The new CEO comes in and wants a new thing. Good for him. Bad for me, but good for him. It's the way it rolls. You don't complain, oh, everybody's an a-hole except me. No, you're the a-hole. I'm the a-hole. They're right. That's their structure. That's what you sign on for. That's, if you want security, don't join broadcasting. The only thing that annoys me are guys that aren't that great. And I could sit down with Stafford or Oakley or whatever, and if I've got some beer into them and said, okay, what do you really think of this guy? How good is he?
Mm-hmm.
And they would say the same thing I'm telling you. I'm not naming names, but the old lions, the guys that know what time it is, would agree with my determinations about certain people that aren't that great on the air. That's all. But who cares? Again, so what?
And I know you didn't listen, but Brady and Lang didn't actually last that long as because Lang was ousted and replaced with Andrew Walker from.
I really liked Lang. I thought Lang was a fine human being. So I was sorry to hear that had broken up. Right.
And in fact, he was booked on this show when the pandemic struck, and for what that's worth. So at some point when this all gets back to
Brady's
normal,
a good father. He's a decent man, and it's a tough game. And Lang is a good person. People are trying to survive and do their best in a crazy business. And all the jokes I made about these people, look, they're all good warriors, and they're all honorable men. They go in and fight the battles and deal with it. And I remember conversations that others have had with me about how close certain people were to getting fired that have been on the air a long time, but they were fortunate. But the bottom line is having control of your own world and being able to control your own destiny where no one can fire you is glorious.
You're preaching to the choir there.
Rewarding. There's nothing more rewarding than having. I was speaking to a program director today. I won't bother saying his name. And they're all worried about loss of revenue. They're all worried about this or that, the other. And they. It's like hats off to you for, being away from the fray, being able to do it. And I'll do broadcasting on my terms. And I'll tell you something. Some of the best fun I've had is on SiriusXM. Because people download SiriusXM, they subscribe to it, and unlike amplitude modulation, with all due respect to 680, which only wins because of its sheer content, and it's got great reach, but amplitude modulation is no longer sexy. It hasn't been since the 60s.
Shrinking pie.
When FM radio became the sexy option. But amplitude modulation radio is so arcane now that some people that I hire that are in their 20s, they'll say, I say I'm on SiriusXM. And they won't even say their father listens to it. They'll say, is that like a podcast?
Right.
AM radio? And we're talking, so let's move this clock forward 15 years. There's no AM radio, brother. Now, a brand as strong as 680 News might do something else in terms of internet radio or whatever, but AM radios are not going to be in cars. That won't exist. When you take a look at some of these stations, I mean, what are they selling? It's the Acorn chairlift catheter crowd. I mean, come on. Seriously.
And they'll eventually die, right? Like, this is just nature.
They are dying.
Right.
I remember going into 100 years ago, CFRB, when Wally was on the air and I was a kid, and they're saying, it's the number one morning show. It's going to go on the air in an hour. So this early in the morning, I was doing some production. And they were complaining then that their audience was old and that their audience was dying off. This is when Wally was there. So, and that's just the nature of the beast. And when it comes to media, it's a moving object. BuzzFeed won't be there forever. You name it. It's a river. It's a moving target. So whatever the media property is or its delivery system, it's going to be eclipsed. Now, and that's great. That's good. That's just the way it works.
No, I hear you. I hear you. And SiriusXM, where we can hear you, and remind us what time you're on. And it's
I'll be every day at 4:00, starting as soon as I get my microphone. I'm waiting for delivery.
Well, that's exciting.
I'll be down there. It'll be fun. I'll have you on. We'll talk about.
Is this the official, like the first time you've announced it publicly?
Yeah. For the first time,
I'm honored.
I'm officially telling everyone that every day at 4:00. I think it's next. I don't have a start date because I've got to get the microphone.
Right.
But I have a new Comrex system, and I'll be broadcasting from the penthouse in Yorkville, and I'll be kicking ass. It's going to be great.
So you must be making some decent coin if you can still live there, because I know we had an off the record chat, and I've been very good about not bringing up anything that was said in that chat. But you did say you were making pretty damn good coin right now.
Yeah, I have a very good business. I'm very lucky.
So tell us though how you make your money, because you can't be making all that money from SiriusXM.
A lot of it's novelty pajamas, the glow in the dark production. I've been very successful with that. And it's a communications company, because before I got into broadcasting, because I was too young to be a talk show host and I didn't want to do news. So if you don't want to do news and you're too young to be a talk show host, what do? So I started working for ad agencies. I worked for some good ones. So I run integrated marketing campaigns. I produce national TV commercials. I produce integrated marketing campaigns, social media campaigns, communications, strategic planning, all the elements of marketing, media buying, all of it.
Do you work with?
I have an ad agency. Basically.
Do you work with Terry O'Reilly?
Vickers and Benson. That's going back.
Because I hear your voice on the podcast. Like, you'll tell me now if it's not you, but I've decided it's you. there's a little stinger at the top of like Under the Influence, if you listen to the podcast from CBC.
No, I haven't. Terry, no, I haven't.
So that's not your voice.
He must have a beautiful voice if he sounds like me.
There is like, and I it's just the name of some production company that
Did I tell you that I'm growing male breasts?
Fred Patterson had surgery to remove his male breasts.
You know, well, I've decided I'm going to eat myself out of this pandemic. Eat my way through it. Serrano's Bakery.
Yes.
That's the place to be, just on paper. No, I have a custard fixation. I the milfweath problem. But other than that, no.
Okay, that's not your voice on that. I apologize. I thought it was you.
I'm running. I am running these days, and I'm happy with my exercise. But I have been eating a lot, so I have to stop that.
Like, I know you made a few jokes about 1010 being God's waiting room or whatever it was exactly, but
I didn't say God's
no,
I didn't say that. Listen.
What did you say? But older crowd listens to it.
If you're programming News Talk 1010, what are you supposed to do? You have your audience.
Right.
You're doing well. What are you supposed to do? You're never going to grab young people with an AM band.
Right.
You're going to play it out. You're going to play it out. You're going to do what got you there and what's successful. I hear they're doing well. I wish them the best. But anybody, whether it's 640, name your AM station, with the exception of 680, because of their very strong content branding. A talk station, it's just on AM radio. It's a struggle, and they know that. I'm not saying anything new. This is a blatant truism.
So you don't think
I'm not calling it God's waiting room.
That was me. I'm sorry.
I'm not putting down anybody's audience, right? I'm waiting for. I've actually ordered a catheter on Amazon, right?
Okay, good.
But I've been doing the John Oakley thing, because John Oakley likes to sit on wax candles. So I have a version of that I'm just experimenting.
Okay, before because I do want to hear about your friendship with Rob Ford, because I find that very interesting. The late Rob Ford.
Rob Ford wasn't friends with anybody. Ford wouldn't look at anybody in the eye. Anybody that was a peer, he wouldn't make eye contact with. He was incredibly shy. Rob Ford, my relationship with Rob, Doug has been to my home, but my relationship with Rob and Doug was that I wasn't going to gleefully burn them. I was going to do interviews with them, and I was going to ask the same question, because when you're in it's not like talk. When you're in talk radio, you run your own show. When you're doing TV news, the producers tell you what to ask. We need to ask this, find out this, ask them this. I would ask the same questions. I just wouldn't twist the knife. And it's all about how you ask the questions. So I would because remember, they were an anti-Ford newsroom at City, right? Everybody hated Ford. And Ford, brought things upon himself to some extent, but he was doing the whole fake news thing. So in inner city Toronto, in the suburbs, they liked him, but inner city Toronto didn't. And CityNews was very inner city mental set. So I said, give me access to you, and I won't burn you. You won't find answers that come out wrong. I won't twist your words, and I won't ask questions and twist the knife with relish. And they said, great, you'll be fair. And I said, yeah, that was it. And that's why I got interviews with those guys that nobody else got. Because now let me tell you something. If the newsroom loved Rob Ford and loved Doug, I would have done the opposite in order to stand out. I did it as a tactic because I needed to create a niche for myself, and I needed access. In this case, it was great because I needed access to the mayor, and it was an exciting story. And I was one of the few TV guys that they would trust. And I did it, and it upset some counselors, but I did it because I wanted access to the Fords, and I got access nobody else got. And I asked the same friggin' questions. So that's the deal. But nobody was close to Rob because Rob was shy. That's why he liked doing the high school coaching, etc., because he felt more comfortable around those people, right? Around those younger men. It's just, he was a very shy man, and they had a hell of a mean father, and both those boys did very well. So, and why we love Doug Ford is because he gets up there and poops his pants. He gets up there and shows the strain and the weight of the office on his shoulders. Doug communicates empathy. He communicates pain. So when Justin gets up there and says, oh, no, it's going to be weeks, we need to see him suffering. We need to see how painful that statement is for people who have lost their jobs or who can't make the lease payment, instead of the diffidence and aloofness, which is natural to him. His empirical reaction is that of a trust fund individual, a person who is bought and paid for and looked after, not someone who actually suffers the workaday tortures, the vagaries of the business day, and how to maintain clients or keep a job or look after a family or buy a can of beans. This is a guy who hasn't looked after. The road has always been paved.
I'm surprised.
And that comes out in his voice. Doug Ford is way overweight and still smokes and is stressed every night. Probably he sleeps with a CPAP machine so that he can breathe properly at night. And he worries every friggin' day about people losing their lives. You can see it when he's up there. And Ontarians don't know the specifics. They don't know any specificity with regards to his governance or how he's actually implementing things that are a benefit to combat this crisis in terms of policy or how he's changed testing, what he's done. What they see is a guy who cares, a guy who's suffering, a guy who's overwhelmed and who really deeply cares about shutting the province down. That's what we see. That's why when people say we think he's doing a good job, they can see him sweat. They see he cares. And I don't see Justin sweating as much. The numbers are good for him, apparently, but I don't see the sweat. But how can he sweat? Because, if he wasn't prime minister, he would be teaching school, right? He'd be a drama teacher. That's what he was doing. And he's trust fund looked after.
Well, he was an MP before he was prime minister.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? He's looked after. I don't have a trust fund.
Well, but Doug Ford hardly is a self-made man, right?
Like, no, he's not. But he's what we care about. I don't care about the trust fund. I'm just using, why is someone not freaking out and not showing the way to the office? And maybe Justin Trudeau is pained by the fact that people are losing their jobs. But I need to see it. And he's supposed to be a drama school teacher. Show some, even if you don't believe it, show some concern and worry on your face. Like, impart, be empathic, convey emotion, convey pain. Doug gets up there and you see it. You see him squirming under the weight of this news.
Andy, I know.
You see him pained. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I totally respect your opinion on the subject. I am a little surprised you used the royal we for why we love Doug Ford, but
I don't name one person who doesn't think that he's done a good job or isn't trying to.
If I may, and I have not been critical of him at all during this pandemic, but if I may, I think most of us are just glad he's not like Donald Trump.
But come on, even people that hate his guts, even the Toronto Star,
right? Because he's not like Donald Trump, and I think we're all just relieved to see a sense of proper leadership during such a traumatic time.
I'm a Martin liberal, by the way. I'm a Paul Martin liberal. So those are my political stripes. I have voted for every party federally except the NDP. Okay, I haven't voted for the Green Party.
Well, Ralph's going to be disappointed to hear that. Ralph's a big Green Party guy. If I may, Andrew, because I know you don't have much time, because I know you got an important business call.
Yeah, we're going to have to shave soon. We've been on so long.
Well, let me just, I need to know the answer to this question, which is, following the
I said bilingual. Only bilingual. That's it. Just me and the wife.
Following the Fan 590 debacle, my words, not yours. You were on City TV as you're talking. This is where you kind of became a person who would speak to the Fords, Doug and Rob Ford, at City News. What happened at City News that you left? Like, did you leave or did they?
Contract. It's all about money, bro. It's all about the cash.
All about the Benjamins.
Yeah. So I was making too much money. So they brought in somebody for $30,000. Listen, brother, if I'm on the air, it's because I'm monetizing things. Okay. If things aren't monetized, I don't show up. Right. It doesn't say Salvation Army in front of my place. Like, I am I'm a mercantilist.
You're in a Yorkville penthouse as you speak.
I'm a mercenary. And what I want to make sure that I deliver the goods, that I do the best job I can to entertain people, and that I'm compensated, and that I have control over my life. And I don't live in fear of anyone anymore.
All right, let me close with an apology for me. I know you got to go, but let me just say that we've now had a good hour together, and I enjoyed the conversation. And I apologize
like
that
2 hours. It's only been an hour. It seems like at least 2.
I apologize to you that on my podcast in public, I may have called you weird.
Don't apologize.
And I mean, it's a good weird. Everyone who's interesting is a little weird. So
let me tell the folks what happened. Mike has been trying to get me on for a long time. I didn't want to go to his place and do it, and I really didn't. When the world turns back to normal, I will come over to your home. But I'm pleased that we can do it in this disembodied format. But it's just about convenience, etc. But I didn't mean to be rejectionist. But I appreciate your interest, Mike.
Yeah, I don't remember the story that way. There was a gentleman who was encouraging me to have you on. He was working with you, and he was saying, "Oh, you got to have Krystal on. He'd be great." And I said, "Sure, I'd have Krystal on." And then it would go into these annoying.
Who the hell was that?
I will know the name if I hear it.
Hampshire?
No, somebody at SiriusXM.
Because I paid him.
It wasn't Hampshire. It wasn't Hampshire.
And that thing about him and I living together in that same sex thing, Mark Hampshire, that's all a lie.
Hebsy's a dear friend, and I only accept good things about him. But this gentleman, I'm thinking of, he might have been a producer at SiriusXM, possibly. The name, when I hear it, I'll say that's the guy. I can't remember it now. And he did some production work. I mean, Humble and Fred were on SiriusXM for a while, you might have heard, for 5 years. And he was working with them on the SiriusXM part. And that guy was working with you, I think, at SiriusXM.
Kyle Hirschhorn.
Yes.
Now, that's a hardworking, talented, decent man. Actually, Kyle Hirschhorn is one of the best people I've met in broadcasting. A really decent guy. Bilal Vakani, one of the hardest working people in broadcasting I've ever met. Both those guys are incredible. Joe Thistle, fantastic guy. John Lewis, wonderful broadcast executive. There's a lot of really good people. And you know who I really enjoy?
Who?
Jeff Salmon.
Yeah.
I enjoy listening to Jeff. That's my phone.
Okay, he was on Stellick and if you have to go, that's fine. We could leave it there.
It's okay.
Stellick and Landry worked very closely with Jeff Salmon on that morning show that you eventually replaced.
Very decent man, a good father, decent man. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Good Maltese guy.
Good man. Well, I won't hold that against him. I've been to Malta. I love Malta, actually. My wife and I went to Malta. We loved it.
Nice.
Back when you could travel. Every place we go to, like we did this big European tour this summer. My wife was saying, when we leave, what's going to happen? We went to Greece, their economy collapsed. We went to California, fires broke out. So what's going to happen to Europe? Look what happened. We left. Disease pandemic. It's all our fault.
You didn't go to Australia, did you?
No, I didn't.
Because then they almost.
But I do produce a lot of methane, so I'm sure I'm assisting the fires somewhere.
Andy Krystal, now I can call you Andy. We're buds. Thanks for doing this, man. Maybe we'll do it again, and I'd love to come on your show. That'd be great to talk to you again.
Listen, and honestly, just personally, because I care about your health, I really hope that rash heals. Okay. Now, by the way, I think, I told my wife, I said, I think I have COVID-19 because every time I urinate, it burns. That's coronavirus, isn't it? That's coronavirus.
You better self-isolate, man.
Keep getting these sores. Okay, listen, take care. All the best to you, and go with God.
I will do so. Thanks, man.
Take care, brother.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.
And that brings us to the end of our 630th show. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Toronto Mike. Andrew is at Andrew Krystal. Our friends at Great Lakes Brewery are at Great Lakes Beer. Palma Pasta is at Palma Pasta. Sticker U is at Sticker U. The Keitner Group are at The Keitner Group. And Garbage Day are at garbageday.com/Toronto Mike. Sign up today. And see you all tomorrow when my special guest is Stephen Page.
This podcast has been produced by TMDS and accelerated by Rome Phone. Roam Phone brings you the most reliable virtual phone service to run your business and protect your home number from unwanted calls. Visit roamphone.ca to get started.